Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us. We've got a show today on St. Albans Town, all that's going on in St. Albans Town, or a lot of things going on in the town. Happy to have on board Bryan Delauriers, the St. Albans Town Select Board Chairman, and Sean Adkins, the St. Albans Town Manager. And I should note, happy Halloween. We're taping this show on Halloween. Boy, the city, downtown Saturday was pretty wild. Did you guys make it to downtown St. Albans last Saturday?
I did not. Hockey season has started, so my weekends are at the complex.
You know, I belatedly thought I've gotten back into skating, so we're talking ice back at the complex now. Has it been there for a while?
Yeah, they put it in, I think, the last couple days of September, so it seems like every year it's another day or two earlier than the previous year.
I'll belatedly get back into skating, but yeah, I've been getting back into skating these days. So we've got ice back at the complex. That's good for a while.
Yeah, me and my dad were the only people without costumes downtown.
Yeah, it was quite the scene. I mean, it took about 15 minutes just to drive through downtown. Just a million kids.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it in previous years.
Yeah,
my kids are younger. Yeah, it's great. I mean, the thing with Halloween, and it'll be tonight, but it's a Tuesday, right? It's during the week, and so I think it's great they throw that on a Saturday when it's convenient for everybody and safer too.
Yeah. St. Albans Town, was the town in any particular Halloween stuff in St. Albans Town that the town itself did? I guess downtown stuff was the main Halloween stuff.
I don't think we had anything official.
Just costumes in the office today.
And I know there's obviously a lot of neighborhoods in the town host a lot of trick-or-treaters, so I'm sure there'll be those neighborhoods will be busy tonight.
Yeah, sounds like weather's not too bad, kind of cold, but at least it sounds like a dry night, so that's good.
That's
Still holding on to daylight savings time for a few more days. That, of course, changes on Sunday. Not my favorite day to lose daylight savings time. So, Brian, it's been a while. Town, what's the biggest issue in St. Albans Town these days? Town doing okay?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one has definitely been, stormwater utility. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know how many municipalities there are that have them. It's less
St. Albans City, of course, has it.
Yeah, in this area, I mean, less than a dozen for sure.
Yeah,
and they're all relatively new, of course. So there's not a lot of precedent to look back on. We did have a meeting, and Sean may remember the exact date, but maybe a month or month and a half ago. September 13th, so about a month and a half ago. And, Dave Allerton of our DPW and Stormwater Utility Director ran that meeting. St. Albans City had representatives there, and there were neighborhood representatives of the big neighborhoods like Gracebrook and Tanglewood.
Yeah.
We're all there, as well as a representative from VTrans or the state and other other area groups that have an interest in stormwater. So there must have been 30 or 40 people in the room.
Yeah.
They did a really good job. We also had the engineers, some of the hydrologist engineers were there, and really get an overview of the entire problem, right? Not just looking at Tanglewood or looking at Gracebrook, but looking at I don't want to say global because that's a little bigger, but that area of St. Albans Town and St. Albans City, and how all of those work together. Because obviously water flows downhill, obviously, and looking at where it's really coming in and where it's building up, and of course it's some of it's being diverted from decades past towards certain areas like Tanglewood, and at least for myself, I'll speak for myself, who's not an engineer, to see the problem altogether in aggregate is both overwhelming in some ways, but also gives you a little more confidence and hope that we're looking at the right things. And I think, again, at least for me, I had a better understanding of everything walking out of the meeting. And again, some hope seeing that the city, the town, and VTrans, which really is just the state in this case, hopefully we're going to work together to do some projects that are going to most efficiently help instead of us trying to do a few things here and the city trying to do a few things there.
Are you working with the city? Are the city and town obviously separate municipalities? Are you totally doing separate things with stormwater, or?
I'll let Sean answer that, but
Sure.
there's definitely cooperation.
Yeah, no, it's actually just came from the stormwater meeting.
Yeah.
With the stormwater meeting, a stormwater meeting, another one. We've had two now with us, the city, and VTrans, and also Aldridge and Elliott, who've done a lot of projects here. So I would say it's trending in the right direction because, kind of like you said, not global, we kind of zoom out. And some of the new, well, there will be new designs, but there were older thing, like the Sash runoff was 60 years old, I believe. And to kind of go through it, we were about ready to do one of the projects, but thankfully we kind of looked back at it and realized that even if we did do that particular project, it wouldn't have actually helped because we're basically backtracking and going up to see where the problem starts. So right now, between us, the city, and VTrans, we're actually, for the first time, I think, well, I've been here 5 months, so maybe it's happened before, but really sitting down and be like, all right, well, what can we all do at the same time to make sure that it all works together? Because if we dump off, in one particular direction, then it might overload a city's stormwater system in that particular area. So right now, we all are on the same page, and I'd say working towards the best solution.
At the public meeting you mentioned before, a lot of concern came up at that meeting, I believe, with the state, or what the state was mandating, or wasn't there just a lot?
This is this is a separate meeting. So
Okay,
this is one.
that was an earlier meeting that I just referenced? Or?
Yeah, we had a meeting earlier where we had representatives from the state coming, and I don't think we had the exact right people there for what our questions were. We had the right people there to discuss how the stormwater utilities, what their jobs are and what they need to work. But our main question was, who pays for it? That's the biggest, I think one of the biggest concerns and one of the biggest touch points, in this whole issue, right, is who pays for it? Who pays for it? Is it going to be, should it be the state?
Imagine that being an issue.
Yeah, because the price tags on these are not hundreds of thousands, but we're talking about multiple millions of dollars. So is it raised from residents to pay for those? So there's the issue of how much should St. Albans Town be paying versus how much should the state and or the federal government, the EPA, be paying, since ultimately it's their mandate.
And are they paying for some of that now? Is it just on the municipalities? Is there some
we're hoping
outside
for
funding?
some grants.
Yeah.
We're hoping for some grants, right? So,
But there's
and then
nothing. There's no targeted money from either the state or the feds for this.
We've gotten a couple grants for particular projects, like the Clyde Allen project, for instance. But mostly, let's say if it's a VTrans project, that they obviously pay for that. I think they just finished one recently up towards the exit, I guess behind exit 19, I think. Dave would be better equipped to answer this one.
Bunch of work. Bunch of work.
But right now we've talked to legislators. We've had plenty of meetings, and we're not the only MS4 community, which that's the big distinction here, because somebody like I don't think Swanton is. So there's the 2036 deadline doesn't extend to non-MS4 communities. So that's kind of what I think really adds another layer to this situation for us.
Yeah, and I want to just mention one more thing, Richard. Sorry, I'm going to get that cold that's going to hit me at some point, and stay with me till March. But and there's that discussion of the St. Albans Town versus the state's responsibility. But within St. Albans Town, there's again that question of folks who live in one of these affected neighborhoods versus those who do not, and finding the right balance of, does everyone pay an equal amount? Should certain neighborhoods pay more? Should folks who live in an area where they will probably never receive any kind of infrastructure changes, should they pay anything at all? Right, and those are some of the discussions.
And in fact, are farmers getting a break? Do they not?
The farmers via, I don't know, a bill in the state legislature that was passed. I guess
this is the first year.
Most of them.
So we lost about 80,000.
80,000.
Really?
Now, again,
How many farmers in St. Albans? How many dairy?
I think there was.
There's a list of about 30, I think, that came
Yeah.
down that were
Really?
exempt. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a
Awesome.
number of factors that go into that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
In their defense,
Yeah.
they are required from separate programs
Yeah.
to do these stormwater projects are on their own land. I couldn't talk intelligently about the
They
details
have to be in
of
compliance
that,
in
but
other areas.
they're exempt from the stormwater utility fee, but they're not exempt from taking care of the stormwater on their
Oversight.
property.
Yeah.
So I should mention that.
Yeah. When has this issue been around for? I mean, it's a fairly new issue. Was the state talking about this for years and finally kind of got this going with kind of mandating that some municipalities need
Well-
stormwater utilities?
Sean just got here to Vermont, so I guess he can
Yeah.
punt that to me. I wouldn't be able to answer that real well,
Yeah.
Richard. I'm really not sure. The entire time that I've been on the select board for, which is about 3 years,
Yeah.
this has been one of the top 5 issues, I would say, for the entire time I've been on the board,
Really?
and probably the number 1 or 2 issue for the last 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is a town again? There was sounded like a fairly contentious meeting that was just referenced. Is the town balking at paying some of the funding you're supposed to come up with, or where does it stand with the town now?
I would say it's more of the equitable payment. So some projects,
Yeah.
600,000, other projects 30. So who pays what? And some HOAs have raised a considerable amount of money to help with these projects
Really?
where others haven't. So how do we just make it kind of across the board equal? So that's, I think, in my opinion, in 5 months has been the sticking point.
Boy, it sounds like a bit of a murky. Sounds like a very tough issue. That's not, it just sounds like it's not particularly clear in
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's good
what you're
verbiage to use for this, also murky
Yeah.
and not clear
Murky,
for the
yeah.
water. Yeah.
Another issue directly related
Yeah.
to this, Richard, that is a little bit separate from
Yeah.
this main thing of the stormwater utility that has come up. Dave Allerton and
Your public works director.
Yep, and his DPW, Public
Yeah.
Works guys, have done a fantastic job this last summer focusing on clearing ditches and getting them so that water will flow better,
Yeah.
clearing culverts. One byproduct of that, as they say, the victim of your own success, so to speak, is they've cleared that and water's moved like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And some of it now is flowing onto private residents'
Yeah.
property.
Because of that clearing that they did.
Because of the clearing and because the system, they've made it more efficient, where it's not overflowing sideways, but going down to the end of the
The
culvert,
next
I
stop.
guess, the
next
next
stop,
stop. So we've run into some questions with that. And we've been, I know Dave has done a lot of reaching out to other communities with how to deal with that. And in some ways, it's been tough because it's an issue where legally the town can't do very much on people's private property, right?
Right.
We can't really do anything on it, liability reasons,
Yeah.
precedent reasons. So that's been challenging, and we've talked a lot about that as well, and how to, what's going to be best for our town as a whole, what's fair for our town as a whole, and also what's fair for individual, residences. Really, I mean, I still there's a few projects, and I was.
How many projects are we talking about for St. Albans Town at this point?
Outside of private right-of-way ditches and culverts,
Yeah.
it's about 15 projects. Yeah.
15
in total.
projects.
15 projects, and
And all-
then
pretty
these
much
other ones
this
are
all gets back to
ancillary
Lake
that.
Champlain water quality issues. Is that?
Well,
and
that's-
that's
some-
part
yeah,
of part
That's
of it?
part of
That's
it.
part of
Richard.
it.
Yeah,
Part of
it.
that is part of it.
Obviously.
Yeah.
One of the original purposes of the stormwater utility is to, and I forget the exact amount. I think might be 60 kilograms, something like that, of
60.
limiting how much phosphorus down to whatever the amount, 60, 65
Yeah.
kilograms a year going into the lake from St. Albans Town. We've also heard evidence from folks, including one of our select board members who's very knowledgeable on these topics, that even if you got it to there, our lake isn't going to be clear. It's not going to be clear for a long time because there's so much phosphorus already in the lake over the past, say, 100 years.
Yeah, not to mention the flooding just this past summer, right? Jeez.
Yeah, and the other part of it, Richard, that I think right now is more meaningful in terms of the stormwater issues is the flooding that's happening in these neighborhoods, right? I mean, people aren't just talking about, well, my lawn's a little bit muddy. I mean, we're talking about water flowing directly into basements and flooding them and
So that's
creating
become an
damage.
issue for some folks in St. Albans Town.
Tanglewood, for sure. We've one house in particular on like Ashton Drive, which is at the bottom of this the circle where all the water flows so efficiently now. You know.
And again, that's their problem, and the town, can the town do anything for these folks, or is that just the individual homeowners' issue to deal with at this point?
Technically, by state law, it's actually the homeowners. But as an outsider, recent coming in, if I were to have bought a house, which a lot of the folks down Ashton Drive are around my age, if I were to come from Virginia or anywhere else and just buy a house, commonly, especially for a first-time homeowner, you're not thinking of, okay, there's some stormwater infrastructure, I'm responsible to clean it out, and maybe the previous person didn't do that. So it's a lot to kind of take in when you weren't expecting it, didn't know it. So it kind of adds another layer. I don't know how many layers I've added to it already. But
so how much are townspeople paying for this, or how you're being?
This last year was the average homeowner paid a straight $50 fee. So most residences pay just a flat $50.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think I mutter the word stormwater in my sleep at night because that's been the number one issue since I've come. Yeah, in terms of trying to figure it out. Went to the Vermont Town City Manager retreat last week, and it's kind of was eye opening to me because there's maybe 7 or 8 of us that have, out of the 10, 12 MS4 communities that had these issues. Talking to other people, other towns, they don't have to, I'm like, oh my, it was almost surprising because of how much of an issue it is here. So it is across the state, but especially for the dozen or so communities that kind of have the mandates by the year 2036. So it's one we hope to have answers for, and like definitively in the next. I think if we're lucky, well, we have to wait to see what they do in session next. We've talked to legislators, and that is going to be a topic of conversation for them.
And what would you like to see out of the legislature next session? Just kind of a clearer kind of lines of what's going on, or
for me, it's money. I think. It's the big
money
one,
would
Richard.
be
Really, I mean,
the biggie.
it's tough when there's an unfunded mandate that's passed down. I'd rather it be a funded mandate, at least to some degree, and to have some kind of idea of how much funding we might get. We know that having a stormwater utility entitles us to, I think it's $25,000 a year from state funding. That's it. This year we were able.
The old drop in the bucket.
It's a drop in the bucket when projects can be $800,000 or more.
In fact, have you got a price tag, a rough price tag for all the projects that you supposedly need to do in St. Albans Town?
Yeah, and the report's a few years old, but the original estimate is just about $3.6 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's a couple years old.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that means 6.
I would add
wild guesses. That's obviously gone,
add at least
gone way
30%
up maybe.
to that. Yeah.
So money, you'd like to see some help from the state.
And I mean, if there was some leadership with, although I mean, I think VTrans is really working with Dave. But yeah, I think it's the money part's the biggest. I think the biggest contention. Having some of the state resources that they have, mapping programs and everything else to use with local engineers and such to help us figure out where's the most efficient projects to do. Because it really does, when you look at the big picture of it, water flows downhill, of course. To start doing the projects closer to the top of the hill, and I don't mean at the top, I mean further up, because the more you can do up there, the less flows down, and as we work our way down, It should mitigate the problems, mitigate until they're solved.
You've obviously been talking to state reps, Lynn Dickinson, Casey Toof, and state
And the
senators
senators
of
as
Rockton.
well. Yep.
Are they hopeful at all of getting, or would they like to see the state helping out with this too, or of course the state's under the gun with, a lot of people think the state budget's gone way too high. But
Yeah, that's a great question, Richard.
I mean, they obviously can't make any promises, but when I've talked to really every single one, including Senator Welch's office last week, and they just don't, obviously all they can say at this point is we know that it's probably will be a topic of discussion. So, so that's and that's about as all I could ask at this point, is at least that you're talking about it and know about it.
Right.
I think what I'm hoping for is the kind of the reality of it, because we're not talking about every locality in Vermont.
Right.
We're just talking about MS4 communities. So, hopefully, while it's still, the number will be very high, no amount that we have in our back pockets, to limit it just to those, dozen or so communities, I think is what I'm hopeful for, is a realistic ask.
So again, there are just about a dozen MS4 communities?
Yeah.
And
they're
MS4, just very broadly put, is just communities facing the most issues, most affected, or?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's ones,
It's an
my
acronym.
understanding is it's ones with the kind of the severest, what's the word?
And
they
state
had?
designated too, so it wasn't, obviously we didn't apply to be one.
Yeah,
And
the
those
water.
are there all those communities with a Lake Champlain connection, or not?
Well, it's essentially
Mostly.
St. Albans,
Yeah.
Rutland, and then a few in the heart of Chittenden County, Winooski, South Burlington, I believe. I don't know if that's the full list, but
Yeah, there's a
that's
few
probably
more,
pretty
but
close.
yeah.
I think, is Milton one as well?
Milton is one.
It's communities with impaired waterways, is I think
Yeah.
what the
Impaired sounds like the operative
the
word.
verbiage they have on it.
Wow, sounds like, so the legislature they'll definitely be dealing with this, or talking about this issue. One of the issues they'll be dealing with, it sounds like.
I hope so.
The way they talk about it, again, not to just keep putting the outsider tag on me, has been a learning curve for me. Virginia looks at it in a much different way. I've said many times, maybe even on this show before, that we didn't have a lake or a river that it was the public good type of thing, but also looking towards the future for development. Housing's a need everywhere, but you can't really do a large-scale development, recruit a company, if you don't have not only water, sewer, but proper stormwater drainage. That's a huge part of it that isn't really talked about a whole lot in Vermont. I've just found that to be an interesting angle, I guess, on it. We all want to save the lake, without a doubt, but for that to be almost the only narrative that has been kind of painted for this program is, for me, I'm like, well, let's, there are many other benefits from this stuff, so I think that's been a bit of a curve.
I think that's.
Well, speaking of the lake, I pay attention to lake levels, about 96.7 now. I just checked the last 5 years. It's about 2 feet, probably still about 2 feet above average. Boy, a lot of concern if we have a lot of precip over the winter. I suspect flooding may well be an issue come spring.
It definitely could
We'll
be.
see. Yeah. March town meeting. Brian, are you up in March?
I am up this year.
You prepared to tell us? Would you like to hang on
I'm
the
not
board?
prepared to tell you, to be honest with you.
You really don't know at this point?
Well, I'll say this, Richard. I really enjoy this. I love serving my community.
Yeah.
This is.
You've been on the board how long, Brian?
3 years, or coming up on 3 years.
Coming up on 3.
I've served, and again, I've lived in St. Albans City for a long time, and I've been a justice of the peace in both communities. I was on the Recreation Commission in the city for I don't even know how many years. So I certainly love. Being there for the community. There's definitely a lot to do, and I love wrapping my head around things and having a seat at the table to try to figure these out. Even though some, quite frankly, caused me to lose sleep at night with some of them.
No, it sounds like a lot of work and obviously a lot of time.
Yeah, and on the other hand, I have a business to help run, partner in a business, and I've got 3 children. 2 are still at home, and I still coach hockey and in other sports when I can. We're traveling all over. My son not only does hockey, but
DC, of course, right?
well, I just mean even for sports stuff where I don't get to pick the itinerary, quite frankly. And and trying to like hang out with my family and take trips are really important too. So I haven't made a final decision yet. Now, if I were to stay and then help choose someone else to be the chairman, that may help too, because there is some extra work being the chair
Jack
with
Brigham's the vice
emails
chair
and
at
everything.
this point, correct?
I second his nomination to be chair next year. Is that what you were saying, Richard?
No, I was just
I'm
said
sorry,
right now he's the vice chair now.
I'm just kidding with you. Yes, he is the vice chair.
And
right now.
who else is up for election? If
That's
they-
Jack and I.
No, so Jack
And I.
also.
Yep.
Yeah,
The
we're on,
chair and the vice chair.
yeah, we're on speed dial. Throughout this,
Interesting.
so it's just the
Yeah,
chairs.
and again, I really enjoy that.
Has Jack, do you know if Jack, as he said, will he run again? Do you know?
He, I don't know if it's my place to. I think you might see him running. We'll put it that way.
Wouldn't be surprised.
As
if
he
ran
puts it,
again.
he's retired. He's looking for some important stuff to do. So.
Yeah. So you're still thinking about it. So no notice.
Absolutely, yeah.
Got about
Yeah,
four
absolutely.
plus months or so.
Yeah, I know you really got to decide. I think by the end of January.
Yeah.
So.
Filing. Well, I can report as you may well. David McWilliams, who's no stranger to running for town selectman, has told me he'll run again. That's the one candidate I've heard about at
Yep.
this early stage.
Yeah, I think I'd heard that too. I mean, I think he'd mentioned he was going to run last time I ran too. And I've met David over the last few years.
Yeah.
Very nice gentleman.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was certainly did a ton of work out here. He was on our board out here. Was
Yep.
a key figure with Northwest Access TV for a lot of years.
Good.
Working on the budget, is that getting some of your attention now too for the next year? Speaking of
Funny
town
you should
meeting,
ask,
4
yeah.
months away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had our first budget meeting about a week or two ago.
Yeah. Last two.
That really initial one, and what we've done over the last few years, which I think is a good way to do it, is to start at 8 a.m. and have all the different department heads come in, about every hour or so,
Yeah.
and go through those individually for that first look. Things look pretty standard. We're not adding any, big new programs or anything like that in DPW or any of the other departments that we have down at Town Hall.
You're coming off a pretty significant budget increase in the last March
we are.
town meeting, in part with the agreement with the city on police coverage, water, wastewater.
Yeah, that was definitely part of it. And we had our first joint police board meeting last night, which is that initial look at what that budget will be. Now, we knew that it's certainly going to be higher than what we were currently paying for police services.
And again, the city and town basically will be 50-50 on police, correct?
50-50.
Starting with July 1st when
Yep.
City PD retakes command in the town.
Yep, and again, it's a choice that we made last year when we decided with this agreement with the city, which subsequent to that I have yet to hear a negative
Really?
negative thought from anyone in the community. Now it's time though for the numbers to come out, right?
Yeah.
For the budget for that, it is going to be higher. We don't have a final number quite yet. It's going to be higher.
And again, you're talking on just what you're going to be paying for police coverage, or you're talking in general? Obviously
Well,
for
both,
police coverage.
both
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
For the police coverage.
One
but-
raises the other.
Yeah.
But, a couple things that, hopefully
go
that
together.
everyone will keep in mind is that we've had an artificially low police budget for the
Yeah.
last several years. I mean,
Yeah.
our police budget numbers, our contracted amount
Yeah.
was set prior to COVID.
Yeah.
Right, so we were the beneficiary of locking in some really low prices.
Yeah.
That runs out June 2024, no matter what,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, let's say, for example, had we not joined with the city with this agreement,
Yeah.
and the city and the sheriff and maybe someone else had put in bids for contracts,
Yeah.
I think we would have seen a huge increase just in what that contracted amount would have been.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, we are joining with the city. It's going to be a higher amount. We know that,
Yeah.
partially because of inflation. But partially because, we also have the affiliation fee is gone, okay?
It's gone, or was it, I thought it was
This year,
halved. It
this
was
year it's
halved?
halved.
It was
July
half
1.
this year,
But
but
will
yep,
be gone
as of
July 1.
Okay.
July 1, 2025, when the police agreement goes
Right.
into full effect.
Yeah,
But the other part, the fact that we were sitting at a joint police board meeting
Yeah.
last night is another aspect of it that I think has a lot of value, which is we're there for the planning. We're
Yeah.
not just getting a contracted, we're going to have 24/7 or anything like that. We literally have not a seat at the table, but 3 seats at the table of the joint
and who are the
police board.
town reps on the town side of the joint police board?
Right now, our 3 voting reps are myself,
Yeah.
Jack Brigham, Al Vogel, and then
Okay.
of course Sean, as by virtue of being our manager, is there fully, everything in the meeting except
Ex
voting.
officio or whatever, you don't get you're not voting, you don't get a
No,
vote?
me and Dom don't vote on that, but obviously we're in the room, and it's basically our job to evaluate the police chief hire and all
You
that
would
stuff.
seem to be 2 key people to have in the room, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes, once the contract goes into effect as well, that's just
Yeah.
another piece
Yeah.
is, Sean will have direct communication with the police chief
Yeah.
on some issues, and the rest would go through the city manager. And a lot of that's spelled out in our agreement.
How's city PD, of course, gearing up for this, needs to staff up, do you know? Did you get a report? How's city PD doing?
did.
With
Yeah.
their
We did.
presumed need to hire more staff?
Yeah, I mean, that's going right now on pace to be fully staffed and
Yeah.
ready for our agreement
Yeah.
on July 1. So it's that's very promising. I know it's a very difficult
Yeah.
career field, or to get people across the country, and so right now they're on pace to hit that. So.
Yeah, Sheriff's Department in its last 8 months with the town, how are they doing for staffing? You hear about just about everybody having staffing issues. Are you
Well, I know
getting the
they're-
coverage?
I know they're
that-
understaffed.
Yeah.
I'll let Sean do that. I know he talks more with the sheriff more often, but they're certainly understaffed. I'll leave.
How are they, are you getting the
updates on
coverage
that.
that you basically are paying for, Sean?
Well, yes, to answer that question,
Yes.
because we changed the agreement actually really right when I got here. So instead of paying kind of upfront for contracted service, and now we pay for the service that was provided. So
Huh.
that allows for to make sure that we do get basically what we pay for.
Yep.
And is that saving the town a little money? Are you paying less than you otherwise would be paying, I assume? Or?
Yeah, we should come in under, which hopefully will help on other things later. But I have talked to the sheriff quite a bit, and they actually have had more promising hiring practices or results recently. But it's still, more promising for them is like, okay, we've got one person going to the academy.
Wow.
And we'll take what we can get type of thing. It's
Yeah.
same thing with really anybody in the police field. But it's they've had a couple promising hires, and they're doing what they can.
Do you feel like you're getting adequate coverage? Are you okay with the coverage you're getting from the Sheriff's Department at this point?
We of course wish we had more. So they've made us aware that there occasionally will be times when there's not a sheriff's car in the town just patrolling. Now that doesn't mean they're not on call ready to come in.
Yeah.
Those times, if they occur, are being changed around, so it's not always the same time or day.
Yeah.
We did find out last night too, which we were already aware, but to hear from Chief Lamoth that they do continue, the city and the sheriffs do continue to back each other up as
And the
needed.
state police as well.
And the state police
Yeah.
as well. That's right. So if there's an emergency call, or if there's a call in the town and you call 911, which we know last night's going right through the St. Albans Police Department's
Yeah.
dispatch room, which we got a tour of last night. Someone's going to respond in any emergency in St. Albans Town, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to wait for the state police to come up from Williston or something like that.
Yeah.
They'll be there. Obviously we wish it was 24/7
Sure.
all the time.
Yeah.
But that's due to staffing. That's what we're faced with.
Come July 1st, and indeed it will be
It will be.
24/7 at that point, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Well, the staffing issue, I interviewed Bill Sheets, the Swanton Village
Yeah.
manager,
Yeah.
former longtime VSP. He tells me, and this is going back maybe a month or so, but I think the last figure he mentioned to me was troopers statewide down about 60
Yeah.
trooper positions, but boy, the staffing issue for
Yeah.
talk about businesses and just about everybody.
Yeah.
Pretty kind of a
Yeah,
tough situation.
and just cherry on top of that. I mean,
Yeah.
it was very hopeful last night to hear from
Yeah.
Chief Lamont that I believe they're on pace. It
Yeah,
sounded like
that's
they
good.
were, if I'm not mistaken, they were down 2 people. One of those folks was already down at the academy, and
Yeah.
so they really need to net one more police officer.
really?
He did assure us to
Yeah.
always, you can never see the future, and
Sure.
someone who's already there could leave or retire and that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
But he doesn't see any on the horizon, so that's good.
Interesting. Yeah, speaking of Swanton, they're maybe looking to get into kind of a similar situation. The village, of course, has a vote coming up
Yeah.
down the road on a new public safety facility, which they could really use. If
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Swanton
I've been in
PD's
there,
cramped quarters, but
Yeah.
I think they're hoping that the Swanton town will kind of go in on them 50-50 kind of, but maybe kind of a
Yeah.
somewhat similar situation.
Yeah. I just think, Richard, when you think back to what services, a municipality
Yeah.
our size, and that includes Swan, right?
Yeah.
They're about the same size as St. Albans Town.
Yeah.
Can provide, and it's fire, police,
Yeah.
and safe roads. I mean, I'm not sure if there's anything else besides those big three. So,
Yeah, they come right to mind.
and St. Albans Town has, I think, one of the finest, fire departments around. Our public works has been very solid. And now to instead of just contracting out or renting, police services, for us to be part of something that we own and can control and take pride in,
Yeah.
I think just kind of helps complete that, those three really key items.
Yeah. Speaking of the St. Albans Town Fire Department, again, Bob Cross still looking to step down as the Public Safety Director. Have I got the right title for him at the end of the year, as he noted in the last town report?
Oh, stepping down as
As public
fire
safety-
chief.
As
fire chief, yeah.
Oh, it's fire, so not as a Public Safety Director? Oh, I guess maybe I was confused about that.
Yeah, just as far as I know, I'm not
Yeah.
sure that. I don't know when the next one's going to happen, but is fire stepping
But
down. as
he's
fire
just
chief.
looking down to step down as fire chief.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And hold on to his position as the Public Safety Director.
Yeah, it's a public safety
Or whatever.
officer, administrator.
Okay,
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
maybe I read that. I thought he was talking about just the opposite, but I guess maybe I read and I'm going back a few months. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
But
new.
he's been chief for a long time.
He's
I don't
been-
know
he's been
chief
the
for a
exact
very
number
long
of
time.
years,
Yeah.
but
Election.
he deserves a break.
No, he's been
That's a
chief.
long
Yeah,
time. Long
he's
time.
been, I think, an excellent chief. Sounds
Yeah.
like you have a very solid fire department.
Mhm.
Speaking of
Very
which, I hear rumblings once in a while about maybe a satellite station on the north end of town. Has that come up at all, or nothing?
I haven't
Nothing.
heard of location, anything like that.
Nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely
Yeah.
some. We've been, having some discussions, and
Yeah.
and some of those, Chief Cross had brought up too, that just alerting us to the building we have right now
Yeah.
probably needs to be replaced or added on to. So we've certainly been looking at alternatives. Do we rebuild on the same location? Do we rebuild somewhere else in town?
Yeah.
Do we rebuild somewhere else, but then also add a satellite station? Quite frankly, do we look at coordinating with the city? Right? Their building may need to be replaced or renovated. So those discussions have kind of started, and but it's going to take a while.
Yeah, town
Like
fire
everything.
department, you're pretty much maxed out there. I mean, you could use more room with the fire department at this point. Are you okay right now?
I would say yes to more room
Yeah.
and just an overall newer building.
So ideally, you'd like to see a new building for the fire department at some point?
Yeah, I think part of the plan too is to have a building that also contains, potentially a bay for EMS,
Yeah.
other types of services that there'd be a spot there as well. I think that was the understanding that that's on the wish list of things.
Plus access to public water, sewer, potentially, because
Yeah.
it's just seems to be a natural thing for
Yeah.
fire. But
Yeah.
but yeah, we're far away from any substantial.
Yeah.
So the former
decision.
town hall, Sean and Brian, anybody interested in?
Well, this is Johnson
I know
working on
that's
this, so.
most certainly one of your missions to try to find a use for that, huh?
Yeah, I'm not going to say, well, I guess we haven't found a buyer. And to be honest, to be frank, I don't think that's on the horizon. And we're kind of going through steps right now to, hopefully, just the sentence I've been using is to return it back into a contributing asset. So right now there's...
So hoping more to find some use for it and probably not selling it. I mean, with the town continuing to own it, but finding someone who will do something with it.
And I've talked to a number of groups, actually nonprofits and some other groups that could see a use for it. With either community programming, either way, I'd say it's trending towards renovation and return it to like a community space. So and honestly, I look at it as part of it'll be an anchor for the future of the Bay District. The Village District. So between the Town Hall, the Bay Park, the new Town Hall, and then whatever happens with the former DPW site, those are kind of the three cogs, for lack of a better term, for kind of the future of the Bay. So that's kind of all tying in to that, and we've actually applied for some grants to repair the roof of the Town Hall.
Yeah.
We've got the Stonehouse roof. We actually have the bids in, so we're going through that process. That should be decided pretty soon. And the DPW site, the former site next door, we had our first community kickoff meeting. So that was with VHB won that bid. We had it on the 24th, and just the community came out. We had potential ideas up on the board, and really kind of talked about what the community wants to see out of it. So.
And what were you hearing from the community at that gathering?
Most of the folks, most of the rumors, I guess, before that meeting have been the boat launch.
Right.
So there was a lot of that, but VHB obviously doing what they do, offered a few other things up, natural playground. There's just a few, I'd say the natural playground or the boat launch right now are probably the top two. There's mention of pickleball courts. I think we have a few of those around the community right now, but it's an exciting thing. I'd like to see it remain a public space also. When we eventually hopefully connect, the homes and all the way to the Town Hall from the Bay Park to the, it's a community that's connected, in my opinion, is a healthy one. So if you go from Town Hall to the Bay Park or to the old Town Hall, you walk, and then other things kind of sprout up in between. So that's kind of the quick vision of the.
So it sounds like the town's not looking to sell the. Is that pretty much nothing you would plan to do to sell the former site of the Public Works garage? It's more likely the town will continue to own it and hopefully find some use for it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we
Suppose if
had
someone offer you enough
some
money or
well, of
something.
course,
Yeah,
right.
that's
20 million
hasn't happened yet. Yeah,
How big's that site? And what's the acreage there? I mean,
2.5 acres.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
Two and a
guess
half.
about 3, but I mean the bigger. Well, we'll put it this way: we had some kind of general idea, I think, of what we thought that might occur with the town hall, the old town hall, I should say, in the old DPW site.
Yeah.
We didn't have any set plans when we hired Sean, who came in, and one of the reasons, of course, that we wanted Sean to come here was the economic development experience and interest that he has. So he's come in and said, well, hold on, let's look at a few different options. So I know at first, at least for me personally, it was let's just sell the town hall. let's get it back on the private rolls, get it off of being a liability for the town. Sean had mentioned, taking a little different approach, and I think the rest of the select board too is open to, okay, let's hear what the ideas are, the options are. So that's what I know Sean's working on. And just to touch on kind of the larger piece, and Sean basically said it without saying it directly, but there's a lot that we're trying to do that we're focused on down in what really is the new village, St. Albans Bay Village. That's
And that is an
there.
official village designation
village center,
that
It is.
that St. Albans Bay has.
Yeah.
As of just, I want to say 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. So it's relatively new.
And what does that that mean? What value is that it has a village designation?
Yeah, it's huge.
Really?
I'll stop. I'll keep myself from ranting.
That's
on
where he
too
gets
much.
excited.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, I really
Another
do.
15 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I'll fill that up real quick. No, so basically, it allows for incentives to come up for a developer or even a non-developer. Even some places you can do work on your home, but it's mostly to spur development, renovations of old buildings, so you can get historic tax credits. You can get all kinds of grants. Yeah, 25% of certain, depending on which grant program you go for. And this is my bread and butter. So as soon as I saw that we had that getting in, so shout out to Carrie and Meg, I think, who did that, and we expanded it, I think, a year ago too. So it's they essentially can draw funds into that area much more easily to develop. Because if it's just a random parcel, out, if it's not in a growth center or a village center district, there's not really a whole lot of funding available in terms of grants. So that's the quickest answer.
Yeah.
So I don't talk your ear off too much about it.
So the former town hall, are you hoping that there might be somebody doing something in there this winter? Do you think you're close to nailing anything down for the former town hall?
We have actually spoke to a group or two that would like to potentially utilize it for some short-term office space.
Yeah.
But we're still in the early stages of that, because also I've talked to the state, I've talked to many people actually within the state about grant funds available to renovate the building. So that right now is kind of top of mind to see what we can unlock and do a lot of the work. Because if it's owned privately, which we haven't had even a sniff of an offer for, by the way, then they can't really get any grants for it. So there's a lot of money out there right now to do old buildings, and I've done them before in other places, and there's nothing better than taking an old building that could be considered a liability and turning it back into some type of public space.
So you certainly think that old building has a future, is obviously what you're hoping for.
Oh yeah, I absolutely do. I really do. And then depending on the future of the water sewer situation, to have that and get the DPW site and the Stonehouse up and running, it all takes time. So first and foremost, so it's not going to happen tomorrow, but maybe eventually, have these things ready. Really to kind of be the anchors for the Bay District.
And speaking of the Bay, the town was giving some looking at, possibility maybe of a wastewater facility down in the Bay Area. Is that's still getting some attention, or seems like I heard some
like a decentralized sewer system.
Some kind of a sewer wastewater system.
Had wanted to look into a while back, and I know whatever the process is didn't go. Really went like we needed it to. Spoken to Sean about it. It was prior to him being here. Where are we at with that right now? That was an original thought, Richard, back when ARPA first came out, and ARPA had I want to say there was like 5 things you could use it on at the time when it first came out. One of them was water, wastewater infrastructure.
Okay.
There was also a deadline on it of when you had to have a project done.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward a little bit past that, the city and town, part of that police agreement, of course, was the affiliation fee was going to be eliminated.
Yeah.
And I think the ARPA deadline got pushed back, and then you were able to use those funds for more various uses. And if I'm wrong on any of that, Sean, let me know. Yeah. So that's kind of changed that a little bit, where it seemed like we only had a few options and we needed to move right now. Yeah. Kind of turned into, well, let's take a breather. We have more time, and there's actually more options.
Again, ARPA being, of course, American Rescue Plan Act money. Is that money has that been mostly designated? Is there still some of that money that you have?
We've got most of it left. I think we've done a few small projects and purchases with it.
Most of it's left.
We have a good chunk,
Yeah, and some of it, Richard, is right down near the DPW, the old DPW site, where we've acquired some land, and we'll release more plans with that in the future.
No, so you acquired some more land just adjacent to that site?
Yep, that should help us with that project there, and also
just
help
with
us
the town hall next door.
Maybe changing some intersection. In particular, that's been that's been tough for,
Yeah,
for
really.
decades. So we may be able to now get a solution for that.
And we're
I
actually,
mean, all of these really, I'm just going to say, when you look at it, when we first started talking about these things, it was the old DPW site and then the old town hall. And as time has gone on, and I think it certainly makes more sense to start looking at all of these things as one, so to speak,
Yeah.
and how they may help each other, because this now is our village center, right? They're all right in this area.
And voters made it clear a couple of town meetings ago that they
Yep.
wanted that to
They
continue
wanted the
to
town
be
hall
there.
there. Yep. Which is great. I voted against that because
Really?
I live about the opposite side of town. So, but with that said, it's it's there now. So we're gonna make it hopefully a great village that still keeps a lot of the characteristics, but wouldn't it be great to have a few more businesses or a few more things to do down there to get people down?
Yeah, I love St. Albans Bay. It's always been one of my favorite areas around
Yeah.
here. The
And
bay's
it's
got a lot of
Great
life
for
to it.
boating. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I just wish it was a place to swim
Yeah.
safely,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
even just, well, before I guess forget, we're actually, this due tomorrow, applying for a grant for so we had a grant out to do this, application to do the sidewalk from the bay to the new town hall, Bay Park to the new town hall.
Yeah.
And we actually pulled that because then I was like, wait a second, let's zoom out, look at the whole, the Bay District. And so we're actually applying for funds to do basically a grand master plan for the whole Bay Village.
Oh,
That'll include TOD, transit-oriented developments, and just the whole, pretty much soup to nuts. That whole area, so we can hopefully put in really a master plan of our vision for, including, again, soup to nuts. So hopefully we'll find out about that in the next couple
Speaking of
months.
touched on skating, any thought to another outdoor skating rink on the Bay Park? Seems
I
like
don't think we'll have it on the Bay Park,
attempts have
like
been
it
made on
was.
that. Actually, I guess they did the lake. Did they
Yeah, we did the lake.
just kept clearing off some of it, I guess?
Yeah. John Montang, I think, kind of took that project,
Yeah.
as an extra thing and
Yeah.
made it really good the year or two we had it. The issue is
Weather never seems to be real
hard,
cooperative.
It's really hard to keep that, as you know, as someone who skates.
I love skating.
It's gotta be
about once
flat.
a winter I'll get to skate out there.
Yeah, it's got to be
Yeah, it's
flat, and having ice and then have snow go on
Yeah,
it, and
it's
then
tough.
slush, and then that whole process.
Yeah.
The other piece was the one that they did set up on land on the
Yeah.
Bay Park.
Yeah.
I believe those boards were borrowed from SASA, I believed,
Oh,
the
really?
local skating association,
Right.
and I believe they've now been sold or
Oh, yeah.
given away somewhere else. So,
So
I don't
probably
think those are
nothing going
available.
on land then down there.
Probably not. I mean, it's a huge ordeal to do. I mean, if you've done one in your own backyard, which
Yeah.
I have, it's a lot of
Really?
work. And,
Yeah, I bet it's a lot of work.
Yep.
I'd be remiss, I think one of the shows I didn't even ask you about this, but the state seemed to have backed off on this, but 7 days, of course, their cover story about Woodside and just
Yeah, very
and the
sad.
difficulty, state having
Yeah.
Yeah.
no real place for, the juvenile justice system or kind of lack thereof. But again, the state was hoping at some point to jump in, at least on a temporary basis, to Northwest State Correctional Facility, and townspeople made their opinions very clear about that. You hearing any, is the state, have they kind of backed off totally on that at this point, Sean, or?
I like how you looked over at me. It's
Well, I mean,
both of you.
last
No,
I heard,
I met with
yes,
them.
but then
Yeah.
I know they had
Yeah.
reached out with some other issues.
They
so.
did, yeah. No, they came, met with me, sat down probably early September. To be honest, I was a little bit nervous. Where's this going to go? But no, they actually said that they acknowledged that they listened to the townspeople, and they have no plans right now to open that
Really?
facility or expand it here. So there'll be some renovations, obviously, but
Sure.
nothing near like the temporary facility that they were talking about. So.
Boy, it sounds like one of the many tough issues for the state, but that sounds like a real tough issue with
Yeah.
Woodside.
Yeah, I didn't read that article,
I
Richard, but I
haven't
did
actually read it. I
listen to.
scanned it, but it might
Yeah.
be worth
Yeah, I
reading.
listened to an interview of the author,
Yeah.
the journalist who wrote
Yeah.
it, and I think it was "A Fall from Grace" was the name of the thing, detailing
Yeah,
the
their
story
cover
of
story.
a
Yeah.
young lady named Grace, and
Yeah.
boy, very hard to hear, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm not saying that those kind of institutions, there's no place for them,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like boy.
Didn't
if
sound
you
like the
get it
best
wrong,
place. Yeah.
if you get that stuff wrong,
Yeah.
it's devastating, right? I mean,
Of course, that's how the prison, as we talked about, the Northwest State Correctional Facility started as a juvenile offender
Yeah,
facility
right,
and
yeah.
managed to change just a little bit over the years. Doesn't it?
maximum
Huge bit.
security prison. Yeah,
statement,
it's
Speaking of the prison, do you get, I think, and I probably have asked you about this before, there used to be, I think, a liaison committee. I'm going back there used to be real security issues there, which you know, but you get any info on the prison, or is there any kind of committee that,
No,
isn't-
we had gotten a report. I think it was right before Sean came with us. The
my first
superintendent, I
Yeah.
think,
That was
came
my first
up.
meeting.
Was it the first?
No,
Okay.
is that right?
The superintendent
Meet the
came up
super?
and
Yeah.
just kind of gave us a
Yeah.
report and just let us know if we, had any questions or wanted any updates.
Well, at least security, it sounds like they've done it for the past few decades. They've had run a pretty tight ship down there.
Yeah, sounds like. I mean, you talk to guys like Jack Brigham
Yeah.
and some of those folks.
Yeah, I've been around. I can
who live
remember
down
just
there
some
and,
horror show stories
Yeah.
in my earlier years up
Yeah.
here.
Yeesh.
Well, some of them, Richard, correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but were before they put fences in, so that the fences were a good idea.
Oh my goodness.
Boy, or maybe not much of a fence, but I
Yeah.
just remember some just serious escapes for
Yeah.
a while.
Wow.
Of course, the Yandos are very good friends of mine who live right across the street.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it sounds like they've, recent decades have gotten a pretty good handle on that issue anyway.
Yeah.
Down to about 4 minutes left. Any issues you want to jump into that we haven't touched on?
I'd just like to.
Brian
Yeah,
and
go ahead, Sean.
Sean?
I just want to mention that
Yeah.
we're doing our Holly Jolly Jamboree on November 17th.
Oh, I did see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did see a little publicity on that.
Yeah.
And when is that again?
This November 17th, I believe, from
November.
4 to, I think, dusk, they say, just whenever they'll light the tree at whenever it hits
Yeah,
dusk.
I love the
so
tree.
it's awesome.
I mean, I walked down to the Bay Park quite a bit, and especially with the lights,
Yeah.
and that's a great tree you come
Yeah,
up
yeah,
with.
yeah. So it's
That sounds like a
got
good
Santa
good
and-
event.
Santa and face painting and goodies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it'll be good.
That's right. Brian, any issues? Any other issues you want to jump into?
No, I don't. I think those are the big ones right now.
Yeah.
Budget, the police, board, and that process coming, and then stormwater. I mean, are there other things going on?
What about
I feel like that's
LOT?
the
Of
big
course,
one.
local option tax money has come through big time. I mean, basically paying
It's
for the town hall, the
essentially-
new public works garage.
Yeah, and that's essentially every quarter since they put it in 2014 or so. I mean,
Is that
it
taking
has
up? Is there
increased.
some still extra money in there? Is that is that most of the money you're getting annually going to those?
We're spending. Well, some of it is already earmarked or
Yeah.
spent, but our LOT bank account, so to speak,
Yeah.
continues to increase. But as we have projects in the future, like a new fire department or so, we won't have to go to the voters to ask to bond a new fire department. We'll
Yeah.
be able to probably do something similar to what we did
Right.
with the town hall. We borrowed like $2 million at very, very low interest rates, and
Yeah.
then the rest we paid for with cash.
Yeah.
And the town has done business that way for a long time, and as a financial advisor, that's interesting that the town is able to do that, and I hope we can continue to pay for most stuff with cash or with money we've saved.
No, it sounds like that's
Yeah.
worked out for the city. Did the same thing with the community swimming pool, paying
Yeah.
for that
Yeah.
with LOT
Sidewalks,
money.
Yeah, all
and,
kinds of
and I'll
things,
be and just real quick, Richard.
Yeah.
Something else that we did a few months back too is, myself and Anna Borden went and had a meeting with People's Trust and
Yeah.
really made sure that that money's working for the town too. So when I say it's in bank accounts, I'm being
Yeah.
a little bit vague with that, but the rest of it's it's working for our townspeople too. It's not just sitting there, but it's invested, so to speak.
Yeah.
And geez, you've been making a few bucks on investments these days with interest rates finally having kicked up a bit.
Yeah.
They're normal now, Richard.
Yeah, I guess back
We
to where
had
they
some
were.
very low for a long time.
So you mentioned the November 17. Any other things, events coming up in the town worth noting?
That's the big
That's
one.
kind of the big-
Yeah.
Just that one
Yeah.
April 8th as well, and I think we've mentioned that in past shows.
Oh, the eclipse.
But the eclipse coming, the town's doing stuff, the city's doing stuff. Probably
Interesting.
every town I would think in Franklin County may
you
be
would
doing
think.
something because we're
Yeah.
all right on the we're I don't want to say ground zero, but
Well,
you know,
yeah, right in the
we're gonna be
totality.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Yep, so should be very neat event.
There's some estimates of potential numbers of people who could come through, and it's so
Yeah, I'm
we're
sure we'll see a
meeting.
bunch of people around you then.
Yeah, yeah. Wear your sunglasses. Yeah,
Yeah.
not your normal ones.
That's
I
right.
guess on that note, and hey, just a half a year away or so.
Yeah.
That'll do it. Hey, thanks to Bryan Delauriers, the St. Albans Town Select Board Chairman, Sean Adkins, the St. Albans Town Manager. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks for, I think I've got producer Alan out there, but thanks for folks doing all the hard work around here. I'm Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for watching us. See you next time.